The biggest show on Earth isn't on Netflix. It's unfolding right now, in real time, and its outcome could shape the future for billions of people. It's the escalating rivalry between the United States and China. Two superpowers locked in a contest that touches every corner of the globe. Think of it as a high-stakes global chess match, where every move, whether in technology, trade, or military power, reshapes our world, from the price of your next smartphone to the future of freedom itself. At the heart of this rivalry are two small but crucial places, Taiwan and Hong Kong. Though tiny on the map, their importance is massive. For China, these are not just territories. They're unfinished business, legacies of history that Beijing insists must eventually come under its control, no matter the cost. For the US and its allies, Taiwan and Hong Kong are more than just places. They're a test of the world's commitment to democracy, human rights, and the idea of a free society. What happens in Taiwan and Hong Kong will send a powerful message about who gets to set the rules for the coming decades. Will it be open societies or authoritarian regimes? Imagine a tense tug of war. Taiwan and Hong Kong are the rope, and every pull, every protest, every negotiation shows who's gaining ground in this global contest. But this isn't just about politics or power, it's about real people, millions of them living with daily uncertainty, wondering what tomorrow will bring. Their stories, their hopes and fears are central to understanding the true stakes in this superpower competition. It's their lives that hang in the balance. So, let's break it down. What's really at stake? And why does it matter to the rest of us? Why are the US and China such fierce rivals? And how did this competition become so intense? Why is Taiwan, a small island, so important to both sides and to the world's technology supply chains? What happened to Hong Kong's freedoms, and why did the world watch so closely as its fate changed? And how do these two places fit into the epic struggle for global dominance, shaping everything from trade routes to international law? Because what happens there will absolutely not stay there. The ripple effects will be felt everywhere, from boardrooms to living rooms. If you use a smartphone, care about freedom, or simply live on Earth, this story matters to you. So let's dive in and see why the fate of two tiny islands could shape the world's future. Why are the US and China locked in this rivalry? It's a question that shapes headlines, economies, and even the future of global politics. The tension between these two superpowers isn't just about one issue. It's a complex web of history, ambition, and competition that affects the entire world. At its core, it comes down to money, power, and clashing worldviews. Both countries want to shape the world in their image, and neither is willing to back down easily. For decades, the relationship was mostly about business. Americans got cheap goods, while China's factories fueled its rapid economic growth. This trade partnership helped lift millions out of poverty in China and kept prices low in the US. But as China's economy exploded, it started competing directly with the US, not just as the world's factory, but as a tech innovator, a global lender, and a rising superpower. Chinese companies now challenge American giants in everything from smartphones to artificial intelligence. The US accuses China of unfair trade practices, stealing technology, and rigging the global system to its advantage. American leaders worry that China's rise could threaten US jobs, security, and influence. China, on the other hand, says America just can't handle a new challenger on the world stage. Chinese officials argue that they're simply playing by the rules and that the US is trying to hold them back. This back and forth has led to trade wars, tariffs, and what some call a financial Cold War, fought not with weapons, but with spreadsheets, sanctions, and economic pressure. Then there's power. The US has long been the world's top dog, with the strongest military, global alliances like NATO, and a network of influence that stretches across continents. China is building its own system, expanding its military, creating powerful banks, and launching global projects like the Belt and Road Initiative. These efforts offer countries an alternative to American leadership, and that makes Washington nervous about losing its edge. But perhaps the biggest difference is their political systems, which shape how each country sees the world and its place in it. The US is a democracy, with free speech, open elections, and a tradition of public debate. Americans believe in the power of the people to choose their leaders and shape their future. China is a one-party state. There are no national elections, the media is tightly controlled, and dissent is often silenced. The government argues this system brings stability and rapid progress. These systems are like oil and water, fundamentally different and hard to mix. Each side sees the other's model as a threat to its own way of life. The US promotes democracy around the world, while China argues its model is more stable and better suited for rapid development. This clash of values is why places like Taiwan and Hong Kong matter so much. They're at the heart of the struggle between these two visions for the future. In the end, Taiwan and Hong Kong have become powerful symbols in a much bigger fight, a fight over who gets to shape the world's rules and what kind of future we all share. Let's talk about Taiwan, a vibrant democracy full of energy and innovation, where the spirit of freedom is woven into daily life. It's also a global tech powerhouse, sitting just 100 miles from the Chinese mainland, separated only by a narrow stretch of water. Beijing considers Taiwan a breakaway province, insisting it must eventually be reunited with the mainland, by force if necessary. This is the single most sensitive and potentially explosive issue in US-China relations, shaping the future of global diplomacy. Why should you care? 2 words: semiconductor chips. These tiny components are the backbone of our digital world. Taiwan's TSMC produces over 90% of the world's most advanced chips, crucial for everything from iPhones and laptops to fighter jets and electric cars. If Taiwan's chip supply is disrupted, the global economy could grind to a halt, causing shortages, price spikes, and chaos in countless industries. This silicon shield gives Taiwan a unique kind of protection, but also makes it a bigger target for those who want control. For the US, keeping Taiwan friendly isn't just about supporting democracy, it's about safeguarding economic interests and national security. Most Taiwanese want to stay self-governed, especially after witnessing the crackdown on freedoms in Hong Kong, a stark warning of what could happen. Every day, they live on a knife's edge, balancing their unique identity and way of life with constant pressure and threats from China. Taiwan is the front line where democracy and authoritarian ambition collide, making it a symbol of resistance and hope. The future of global technology, and perhaps even the world order, depends on what happens here. That's why everyone's watching so closely. The stakes couldn't be higher. Taiwan's fate could shape the next chapter of the 21st century. Why is China so determined to take Taiwan? It's about history, pride, and power. The Communist Party claims Taiwan has always been part of China, though the reality is more complicated. The split began in 1949, after China's Civil War. For Beijing, reunifying Taiwan would close a painful chapter and prove China's resurgence. Strategically, Taiwan sits in the first island chain, blocking China's navy from the Pacific. Controlling Taiwan would give China a military edge in Asia. There's also an ideological threat. Taiwan is a successful democratic Chinese society, contradicting Beijing's claim that only one-party rule works. For China's leaders, a free Taiwan is a dangerous example. That's why they won't let the issue go. The US has a deliberately vague policy on Taiwan: strategic ambiguity. Officially, it acknowledges Beijing's One China principle, but also sells Taiwan weapons and treats it like an unofficial ally. Why the tightrope? First, semiconductors. If China controlled Taiwan, it would control the world's tech supply. That's an economic nightmare for the US and its allies. Second, geopolitics. Taiwan is a key link in America's Indo-Pacific alliances. If the US let China take Taiwan, allies like Japan and South Korea would question America's promises. US credibility is on the line. Finally, values. Taiwan is a democracy that shares American ideals. Letting it be absorbed by an authoritarian state would be a blow to democracy everywhere. For the US, defending Taiwan is about self-determination and the future of freedom. The stakes are global. That's why America cares, and why the world should too. Now, Hong Kong, a cautionary tale for Taiwan. Once a British colony, Hong Kong thrived under one country, two systems, promising freedoms until 2047. But over time, Beijing chipped away at those freedoms. In 2019, protests erupted over a law allowing extradition to mainland China. Beijing's response, a sweeping national security law that criminalized dissent and silenced opposition. Newspapers shut down, activists jailed, and political life extinguished. For the West, this was a broken promise and proof Beijing can't be trusted. For China, it was about restoring order. Hong Kong is now a stark symbol of the clash between democracy and authoritarian control. Taiwan is watching and taking notes. The world is too. Taiwan and Hong Kong are the front lines in a global contest between the US and China. This rivalry shapes everything: military power, technology, and the rules that govern our world. China's military buildup is aimed squarely at Taiwan, while the US tries to maintain its Pacific dominance. The South China Sea is another flashpoint, with China building military bases and challenging US influence. Economically, it's a race to control the future: AI, green energy, and especially semiconductors. The US restricts China's tech access, China pushes for self-sufficiency. The world is splitting into two tech spheres, forcing countries to pick sides. At the core, it's a battle of political systems: democracy versus digital authoritarianism. Taiwan and Hong Kong are test cases for which model will win. The stakes are global and personal. The outcome will shape the 21st century. The world is watching. What if tensions boil over? A US-China war over Taiwan would be catastrophic. Two nuclear powers, two giant economies. The human cost would be immense, especially for Taiwan's civilians. Even without war, a conflict could cripple the global electronics industry and halt trade through the Taiwan Strait. Stock markets would crash, businesses would fail, and a global depression could follow. Every country would feel the shockwaves, alliances would be tested, and the global order could collapse. For Hong Kong, the path is set: more control from Beijing, less freedom. For Taiwan, the threat is existential invasion and the end of democracy. A single miscalculation could trigger a chain reaction. That's why diplomats work overtime to keep the peace. The cost of failure is too high to imagine. The world can't afford to get this wrong. We're at a turning point. The US-China rivalry and the fate of Taiwan and Hong Kong will define our century. This isn't just about distant places, it's about the principles shaping our world. Will democracy and self-determination survive, or will power decide everything? Hong Kong's story warns how quickly freedoms can vanish. Taiwan is determined to avoid the same fate. The future is uncertain, and the risks are enormous. The world is interconnected. What happens there affects us all. In this high-stakes contest, we're all on the board. The world holds its breath, hoping wisdom will prevail.